Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Peace Fund Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Well, good morning, and unfortunately you're not listening to Ethan Dettenmaier this morning. His dulcet tones have been taken out from us. He's had to get out of the studio, unfortunately, so I'm on my lonesome. Well, actually not quite. I've got John with me. John, are you there?
I am. Good morning, Adrian.
This is fabulous to have you first thing up in the morning. How are you doing
Yeah,
this morning?
it's exciting. It's exciting. I'll do my best to step in and fill Ethan's.
Big shoes? Is that what were you just about to say? Big shoes?
No, I was going to say formidable shoes.
Formidable. Actually, formidable. Actually, what did he want at one point? He wanted great and Dettenmaier in the same sentence.
Yes, he was the great Ethan Dettenmaier for a while, officially.
Yeah.
Once it's said on the air, it's official.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not so sure how successful he's been in that campaign, but I'm sure we can actually get the Twitter blogs to actually figure that one out.
That's right.
So this week's National Volunteer Week. It's April 12th to the 18th. Mark your calendars. National Volunteer Week is a time to celebrate people doing extraordinary things through service. Established in 1974, the initiative focuses national attention on the impact and power of volunteerism and service. By working together in our respective communities, we have the collective power to make a difference. So, how will you serve? We challenge everyone to find a way to create change in your own community and share your stories with us and your photos on Peace Fund Radio, our Facebook page, and you can go there and post them, and we will have a little chat about it. So this morning we're going to continue our education week, or month, should I say. As we said before, an educated population is a country's greatest wealth. Now, as I said, I'm not entirely alone this morning. I actually do have somebody in the studio with me. Laurie, good morning, Laurie. How are you doing?
Good morning, everyone.
Now, Laurie, she's been enjoying a journey of education for quite a few years now. She's taught in a variety of different settings with a vast array of teaching methods, all ages, traditional classrooms, film sets, in theatres, online settings, and she's also held the position of elementary directress. How did you say directress? The director isn't that sort of like not politically correct anymore? Director is one level, it's like actor, not actress.
I suppose you could argue that.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of going directress. Anyway, director of education.
It does sound pretty awesome.
It does, doesn't it? Directress at a Montessori school, the director of education at Silver Learning Centres, and head of education with. How do you say Ahimsa Media?
It's Ahimsa.
Ahimsa. What is Ahimsa Media?
Ahimsa Media is a media storytelling company which sort of encompasses all things. It has an education department which caters to kids who are learning on sets, who are missing school while they're making movies and TV shows. But they also have a whole media side which teaches, companies and corporations who are trying to use Facebook and different social media feeds to get their brand out there. It teaches them how to actually engage and create stories around what they do rather than just blasting information out. And
now, you've taught on sets as well before, haven't you? Do you find that fun to do? Is it good for the kids? Is it bad for the kids to have them on a set without being at school?
I find it to be a lot of fun and really creative. For example, you're filming on set. You're not always in a building, a sheltered classroom. Sometimes I had to make classrooms under trees, or you get to get out in the world and you get to take advantage of opportunities that come up in the moment. I remember going hunting for bullfrogs with one child, and there's a great science lesson right there. So it's just an opportunity to have a lot, sometimes one-on-one learning or smaller group learning and have a different experience. I think the more you can switch it up and
it's interesting because we've been discussing technology in children for the past month and a half, isn't it, John? Something like that.
Yeah, and we started with different the effect of different media on kids, and we're kind of transitioning to the use of technology in education in the classroom.
Now you've dealt with both. You're certified both in Canada and the US, isn't that right?
Yes.
So is that your mic there, John? That you sound like you're somewhere in like in a construction site. Where are you, John?
I am actually I'm at my work. There's somebody's mowing the yard outside of the
there
window.
you go.
And unfortunately, it's something I can't.
I thought it was a
stop.
tractor.
I'm going to try to move to a spot that's a little quieter.
I thought you were moving the cows from one barn to the next.
That's on Tuesdays, Adrian.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I got the days mixed up. Anyway, let's get back to Laurie. Laurie also writes a lot of blogs. You pour a lot of creativity in writing blogs on numerous sites, helping individuals and corporations manage the social media branding. So you've got a lot of experience on both social media and kids. So this week, obviously, we're talking about education, and we're talking about what the effect of education is on their kids. The dropout rate from 16 to 24-year-olds who come from low-income families is 7 times more likely to drop out than those from families with higher incomes. Children that live below the poverty line are 1.3 times more likely to have developmental delays or learning disabilities than those that don't live in poverty. And by the end of 4th grade, African American, Hispanic and low-income students are already 2 years behind grade level. By the time they reach the 12th grade, they are 4 years behind. Now, we've mentioned this before, but I just wanted to refresh everybody's memory. Technology in the classroom, is it good, is it bad? I mean, what's the consensus here? What do you think, Laurie?
Wow, it's a huge statement on either end. I don't think in any one way it's either all good or all bad. I think that, like all new methods that come out, you have to have a balance. So you can't let technology take over because suddenly it's this great exciting thing and you forget all about the traditional methods that have worked so well all along. And at the same time, you can't discount it. You can't jump on board saying, I think this is going to do more worse than good, and just not include it at all. So I think as long as you can find a balance, it can be really exciting. It can be really engaging for the kids. And if you don't do it in the right way and you're counting too much on it, then it could be detrimental.
Yeah, now you've actually homeschooled one of your children, I do know, and you have one of the school. Do you find that she does a lot online, or do you do like stuff when you do homeschool? Do you actually do things that are written and oral type of teaching? What type of stuff does that encompass?
Well, because homeschool is now a much more popular thing to do, a lot more people do it. There's programs that have been created that are more interactive, online. A lot of her classes would have videos for her to watch, or things that try to be more engaging, and they try to have group discussions, so you're talking with other kids through discussion boards. But you still can't replace, if she's middle school, high school, you're having to read out of a textbook. So the assignment could be read these 3 chapters, and then she's sitting there reading 3 chapters, which can be really boring. So I still try to jump in, and I will read a chapter and I'll, act it out for her or try to make it more exciting. And that's always information she remembers more than anything else that she read online or read out of the textbook. So you still can't replace live interaction totally.
Well, currently there's roughly about 275,000 kindergarten, 12th grade students from 31 states who are taking classes online, and school administrators all over the nation are handing out iPads, asking teachers and students to come up with new ways to learn with them. And some schools are even experimenting with flipped classroom, in which kids read or watch videos of a lecture for homework and work through problems or questions with an instructor during class time. There's so much going on. I mean, and we can talk about charter schools, which you know a lot about. There's a rapidly expanding chain of charter schools that serve low-income children. They're employing what they call a blended learning, which I think is what you're talking about, Laurie, which is the classroom is broken down into small groups. Some kids work with a qualified credentialed teacher, while others are shepherded to a computer room where, under the watchful eye of a paid-by-hour supervisor, they zoom ahead or redo a lesson using interactive and adaptive software. I think that's a really interesting way to look at it, don't you?
I do, actually. I think that there's a variety of learning styles. Some kids are auditory learners, some kids are tactile, some kids are visual learners.
Okay, explain what tactile. What do you mean by tactile?
Tactile means you learn best by actually doing things. It's hands-on learning. So you actually need to be able to move things around with your hands, or build things, construct things, and you may be able to watch a lesson on something, but until you actually attempt the question on your own, it's not going to sit with you. It's not going to fully form the process for you in your memory.
Which of these sort of processes do you think these processes are all like go hand in hand together, or is one better than the other?
I think it's good to have them all together. The idea of the flipped classroom where the students are often reading or watching the lesson at home, I think that's trying to tackle one problem we're having where the homework kids are doing at home is often really tricky and confusing, and if you don't have a parent there or anyone else around to help you, you get really frustrated and you can't complete all your questions. And, my kids are in high school now, and some of their classes, they don't even take up their homework, so you're not even getting the reassurance that you did your questions right. So I think that's a good idea to add sometimes too, where you've done the watching at home and then you're doing your homework where there's a teacher there to help you through what you're frustrated with and what you need help on. But then again, just doing that all the time is going to be a bad thing, because then, you're expecting that the kids have a computer that they can watch these lessons on and that they can do those things and that they will be engaged and not have the TV on in the background at the same time. And,
Well, because, a lot of the time we found that actually, motor skills, kids actually learn things on a TV. If you just solely put a child in front of a TV, they don't learn as quickly, like speech, they don't learn as quickly as somebody that when you're actually physically in the room to teach them that. Although a lot of marketing says, get your kid to learn this, it's a much easier way to do it. But in fact, it's a marketing gimmick to sell a product. And we've gone through that, a lot. For the last 6 years, I'm going to just talk about it. There is a buzz about educational technology around the classroom. I want to ask about and I have notes here that basically says it can be good. One of the problems for schools, teachers, and students is that textbooks are increasingly expensive, and they quickly get outdated and they're broken and physically cumbersome. And you move away from the reliance on textbooks to the use of multimedia. It offers an advantage. So there's cost savings, and as you said, there's a lot of low-income families. If they can get to a group computer somewhere, they can do that rather than have to go and buy the books, which does help that, and it increases efficiency, improved accessibility, and enhanced learning opportunities, etc. And it's gone. But the problem I kind of see with it, in a sense, you mentioned the point about TV being in the other room, but the other thing is, how much does the parent then get involved with helping them with their schoolwork? To actually help them with some of that, because, sometimes it's foreign even to the parent.
Right. And they've come out with so many different ways of learning that are very different than how we learned. So, the Common Core initiative, which is out right now, is very difficult for us to understand. It's a completely different way of thinking. So I think a lot of times the technology is easy for the parent to say, okay, you can just watch. I don't understand it. Go check it out. A lot of kids are YouTubing things. They don't understand a math formula. They just go on YouTube, how to solve a quadratic formula, and there's countless videos of people explaining it to them. So on one hand, that's good, because perhaps if you're a low-income family, you can't afford a tutor, or the parent doesn't know, or forget about low-income family, high-income families doesn't mean they know how to do homework any better.
Right.
So having that resource for the kids to access of, looking up these how-to videos is definitely a helpful thing, but if you use it as an excuse, then
you actually mentioned, you actually touched my brain on something else. Actually, there's a prospect I didn't even know about. It's a Smart Student Information System, SSIS, which creates a collaborative environment for parents where they can log into a portal and check the child's attendance, academic progression, exam results, scholastic assessments, and a lot of other things, which basically is what you're talking about. Don't stick your kid online. You've got to check up on them. You can't just let them go there, because then you can see what they're doing and how they're doing it. And if they need help, then you can at least step in then.
Right, and if you let anything go on for too long, then they're forming bad habits that you don't know about, and they could be, if they're even playing an educational game, like really young ones who, there's a lot of preschool games that are out there, but if they're continuously doing something wrong, then they're making those wrong habits, and those are really hard to break. So you still have to keep an eye that they're playing the game properly. And
now, let me ask you a question. Because obviously there's we're talking about computers, we're talking desktops, etc. What about, smartphones and stuff like that? Do you give your kids smartphones when they were very young?
I did not, no. We are definitely slower to agree to these things. I mean, we try and sort of stick to the model with our kids where just enough that you fit in, because at the same time, if you keep everything from your kids, if you don't let them play any video games, if you don't let them have access to a cell phone, then
they'll find it somewhere else, won't they?
Well, and they can really be ostracized from their friends. If you go to a friend's home and they're all
Right.
playing video games and you've never even experienced one before, you're going to have a hard time being a part of your friends. So enough that we find acceptable to be, in the group without being overboard or too much. Like, you don't have to have everything that everybody has, but you can have this. They're in high school and we just let them get smartphones. They're not on Facebook at all, but they are on, Snapchat. So they have, a little
Right.
bit, but not everything. And
I think you've got a good balance there. I mean, I know your husband's is very balanced in a lot of things he does. I mean, he's a good friend of mine, but let's leave that alone. He's probably listening to this. He's a director now. He was an actor. Many of you may know him. His name is Richard Yearwood. Dun, 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 dun. He was on the series we did together called Tracker. But anyway, not so good. Let's talk about the not so good technology. Some teachers, they're not quite sure how to, because we are dealing with a jump in technology over the past 20 years, whereby you have to go from one system to another and how to incorporate that into how you teach, how you were taught to teach. If you're
Right.
30, 40, 50 years old and you're a teacher, you might not have come into this Facebook revolution or whatever at the same time these kids
Right.
have. So I think it's you've got things like smart boards, and I know some of the schools we've toured for our child Angelisa, who's going to preschool, kindergarten soon. They have smart boards, but they have there's things like iPads and laptops, which are pretty good, but some teachers don't use these devices properly. I mean, smart boards, for example, they're helpful learning tools, but most teachers end up using the smart board as a projector, ignoring the programs that smart board actually has to offer. So it's a question of actually, but who has time to learn that stuff? I mean,
Well,
you as a teacher, would you do that? I mean,
that's the thing. I mean, well, I would, because I'm really excited about learning and education, and I want to change things up, do different things all the time. However, when you have a family and you're teaching, a lot of people don't appreciate the time that goes into it. People think teachers have such an easy job and they have such a short day and summer's off, but when do you think the teacher is planning their lessons for the day? It's after your kids
Right,
go home.
exactly.
It's oftentimes when they're at home, especially the younger grades, they're cutting out all the little preparations for the arts and crafts. They're making all the stencils for you. When do you think they hang the work up on the walls, and when are they writing
Right.
report cards? It eats into a lot of their family time, and to learn these smart boards and new technologies really requires them to go off on weekend workshops and learn different things. So, we have to respect their time and enthusiasm. On the other hand, there will always be teachers, just like any job, there's people who are really gung-ho about it and people who settle into a comfort level. There's teachers who teach a lesson, put it in a box, so next year they pull out the same lesson, teach it. And, I remember when the Winter Olympics were going on in Vancouver. We were living up there at that time. And, in one of my children's classes, they did so many exciting activities revolving around that. They brought the Olympics in, and everything they learned had something to do with that, so they were really excited. In my other child's class, they didn't even, maybe they talked about it, but nothing in their learning was revolving around that, because I feel the teacher pulled out her February box. She had her Valentine's
Right.
lesson from the last 30 years.
right,
And
and just continue to do
wasn't
that.
going to change. But every year, your kids are different than the year before, and you have to
Right.
gauge and change things.
So how do you do? I mean, there's interesting because my wife and I've discussed this. How you every time you go to a school, there's one class that has a bad teacher. It doesn't matter where you go. There's one class that your kid's really not getting it.
Right.
And it's either the teacher. What do you do in that situation when you kind of know that it's not working? Do you go to the principal and say, look, this teacher's not really getting it with my kid? How do you deal with that?
You can try going to the principal. Most of the time, they will not accommodate you. They usually have, even these big written things that say we will not change classes based on teachers or student-teacher relationships. This is mostly because they would have so many people changing classes and all the time. So unfortunately...
So how do you deal with it? How do you do it as a parent if you realize that that's not going to change? Do you step in and start teaching your kid that lesson?
Right. You have to... It depends on what the situation is and how the teacher is not, being good in the classroom. So you can try approaching the teacher yourself, which unfortunately sometimes makes it worse for your child because the teacher will be upset that you don't like something and take it out. It's a normal thing. And but you can teach your child the lesson that in life you're going to have to work with groups of people, and you'll have a lot of times where there's things that you don't like that you have to work through, and you try to pull the resources and help your kid get what they're not getting in the school. And this is where you have the problem with different families, different working situations, different lives. Not everybody has the resources to protect their kids through that, but especially with younger kids, you have to focus on their emotions because this can lead to a lot of anxiety a lot of times, and anxiety, depression, if they're scared to go to school, if the teacher is too strict or they think they're mean. So in that case, you have to put more effort into their...
So, the educational system has changed so much as I was at school, I know. I was in, I was a mess. But anyway, that's beside the point. John, what about you? Are you there? Are you there still?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I've been quiet. I was trying to hide from the noise.
No, it's okay. You hidden very well. It's actually I could have muted you, but I didn't. I've got the power of the button today.
That's right. That's right. Adrian has all the power this morning.
Exactly. I know we've got a Peace Fund Hero of the Week calling in very shortly. Michael Bervell.
Bervell.
Okay. Do you want to tell us a little bit about him? I know that he should be calling in very shortly, but give us a little update on Michael.
Michael is awesome. As you know, Adrian and Lori, we have every week we have a segment called Hero of the Week, in which we highlight a young person who has done something remarkable for other young people. And this week's hero is Michael Bervell, who is the executive director of Hugs for Ghana, which can be found at hugsforghana.org. He was recently a 3.dash global team leader for the We Are Family Foundation at their annual summit in New York. He's also a 2-time state finalist in congressional debate, a contributor to the Washington State Fish and Wildlife Youth Council, an intern at the Lifelong AIDS Alliance, and an asset manager at Housing Hope. He's going to be joining us today to talk about his ongoing work to protect, educate, and aid children everywhere. And if we'll hold tight, I'm going to get Michael on the line right now.
So, yes, I want to talk to this young man. We talked about him last week, didn't we? And,
we did. We had Riley Gant from Rainbow Pack on last week. Riley's charity she puts together backpacks of school supplies for children who are in need. So she's doing some incredible work. And Michael was one of her fellow 3.dash global team leaders at that summit in New York. So Michael should be calling in here, Adrian, any second.
It looks like he's calling in right now. Hello, Michael. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing? You're on Peace Fund Radio with John Beerley this morning and Laurie Yearwood, who's a teacher extraordinaire. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Laurie and John?
Good morning. All well.
Awesome.
So where are you calling us from this morning?
I'm calling from Snohomish, Washington. It's about half an hour north of Seattle.
Half an hour north of Seattle.
Yes,
cool.
Seattle, Washington.
Yes, well, actually, John's asking me, see, let me just see something. John is actually asking me whether or not, oh, there he is. Okay, there we go. I've got to do that. I think you'll probably hear us talking now. It's technology this morning. My co-producer's out the and I'm running the board, so it's kind of, John, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
yes, I am.
See, I did
Good
work.
morning,
Fabulous.
Michael.
Good morning.
So, how old are you at the moment, Michael?
Yeah, I'm 17 right now.
17.
I only get older from here. But
Yeah, we all do. Trust me about that. There's no changing that. That just. So, when did you start Hugs for Ghana?
We started it in 2007. It was mostly a family thing, actually. So after vacationing to Ghana, I was in 6th grade. I went to my parents' homeland. My parents are both born in Ghana, West Africa. And it was interesting just to see how they lived compared to how I lived. You know, I could ask for an Xbox and I get an Xbox. I could ask for a Game Boy DS and I get a Game Boy DS. But in Ghana, the kids really didn't have any of that. And so after going there, my brother and my sister and I were kind of shocked just to see how they didn't have running water in some of the villages. They had electricity in maybe 5 or 6 of the houses. And that they didn't even have schools or sports supplies at the local schools, and enough infrastructure there to have the schools be functional. And so in 2007, after returning from the trip, we created Hugs for Ghana. And so to date, we have over $75,000 of material and monetary donations. And we have lots of other volunteers. We have over 100 volunteers in 5 states. And we're expanding our work to lots of different countries as well. But that's really how and when Hugs for Ghana got started.
How does it work? I mean, how do you choose organizations? How do you distribute? How does that work?
Yeah, the main thing that Hugs for Ghana does is we organize supply drives around schools in Washington State mostly. We also partner with businesses. And so we collect things like school supplies, sports supplies, books, and then we ship that over to Ghana or whatever country we're helping out and hand deliver that to hospitals, to orphanages, and to schools. And so on our first trip to Ghana, it was really my sister, and she was spearheading it at our local high school. She put up a couple posters and wasn't really expecting much to come out of it. And we ended up getting over 5,000 teddy bear donations. And so we stuffed our suitcases full of that. And in 2008, we went to Ghana again and hand-delivered all those teddy bears to awesome. Korlebu Hospital and everything else. And it was amazing just to see how excited the kids were, because it was their first teddy bear and the first time they'd ever had something like that.
So where do you get the materials from?
Yeah, the materials that we get usually are donated from students around the area. And so I go to Camac High School. It's a local high school in Mukilteo, Washington. And every year we do a supply drive there. Or we do also supply drives in the community around Mukilteo. And so we partner with about a dozen schools, and all the students just donate what they have. And so whether it be, we're looking for pencils and school supplies, then the students would donate those school supplies. Or another thing that we could say is, we're looking for teddy bears, like we did the first time, and they'll donate teddy bears. One of the really cool things that happened recently is we partnered with the Everett Aqua Sox for our local sports drive. And they ended up giving us a lot of their surplus supplies from their summer camps. And so they gave us T-shirts, they gave us soccer balls, they gave us baseballs and baseball bats. And we really partnered with lots of the different corporations just to see what can you do to help the community and give back.
You're quite an interesting young man. So John told us that your current role is executive director. What type of duties do you do for that position?
Yeah, in this position, I'm really the person that controls the organization, in the sense of I'm really the one that spearheads creation of new branches. Currently, we have 3 branches of Hugs for Ghana in Washington, one at my high school, of course, and then 2 others at 2 other high schools. And so it's a lot of networking just to kind of see what students are interested in making a global impact and making an international difference. One thing that I believe is when given the opportunity, lots of students are going to actually reach up and step up to the plate to bat and want to help the rest of the world and help their community. And so that's one thing I do as executive director. Another thing that I do as executive director is spearhead fundraisers and create new projects. And so one of the most recent projects that we created is the Hugs for Ghana Project Idea Grant. We allow students under the age of 21 to apply for grants for up to $500 to do whatever idea they have. And so that's a really new project. And Hugs for Ghana sponsors that, and we give them partnerships, we give them mentoring opportunities, and really just allow them to let their ideas grow. And the last thing that I do is really just sustainable development in terms of just trying to get a lot of our student volunteers to come up as student leaders. And so we have a junior board and a senior board in Hugs for Ghana, and that's how our organization is split up. And so we do junior board interviews, junior board applications, etc. And that's really another one of my duties that I think is the most fun, because I'm going to meet so many amazing students from around Washington State that are doing amazing projects and that have amazing ambitions. And all of those people come into Hugs for Ghana and help the organization grow even more.
I mean, we've been talking a lot about education. Obviously, you're a student yourself, and you've, as you said, you go through some of the places in Ghana where you're dealing with younger children. What do you think some of the biggest issues are facing school children today here in the United States and in Ghana? What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues that face school children today is the lack of creativity. A lot of my friends that I know, of course, we're all in AP classes. We all do amazing projects and amazing things in our classes. But to some extent, we only do what we're told. And what I mean by that is maybe we get an assignment in physics that says, okay, go on the smart physics curriculum it's an online curriculum and watch the videos, and then do the homework assignment. And that's really all we do. We don't really have the creative initiative to maybe create our own electric circuits or do our own experiments with gravity and try to challenge the status quo, which I think is interesting. Because Einstein always said that, doing the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity. And yet the education system has always been rooted in teaching students what has come in the past, not really encouraging them to think creatively for the future.
It's so funny, Laurie, you were talking about that this morning, how we were talking about, how sometimes teachers in a classroom will teach the same thing as they did for the past 30 years to that same class in February, which is their Valentine's packet that they send to teach. I mean, that's the issue you were discussing, wasn't it?
Right, exactly. And I agree with you 100% about the creativity. I think students today don't know how to solve their own problems either. They are in the generation of immediate gratification. So I don't know how to do this. Someone just tells them, as opposed to
them figuring
how do
it
you
out.
think? How could you go about trying to do this on your own first? And you do everything you possibly can before someone steps in and gives you what you need to finish it, kind of thing.
Yeah, Michael.
And that ties in really well, too. A few weeks ago, we had Tommy Yoon on the show, who is an animator and writer who's worked with the Robotech series a lot. And he talked about with his own children that he tries to teach them to create rather than to consume. And I think that really stuck with me. And I think it really ties in well to what both Laurie and Michael are saying.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, Michael, is we're talking about technology in giving kids the ability to do it. And sometimes you've got kids that can now just look up online and find the solution to a problem, which is great. But I think just keeping them in that vein is also dangerous because they're not problem solving themselves. What if the internet goes out? What if the power goes out for 5 days? How are they going to solve that? I mean, obviously in Ghana you don't have that issue as much. How do we work that? I mean, there's a balance that needs to be brought in, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. One way that I see of fixing it, primarily in the United States, is through computer science. Last year I took an AP computer science class, and they gave us a project. It was one of the first projects that we had, and they said, all right, code a calculator. And that was all. They didn't give us any guidelines. They didn't give us any rules or regulations or how many lines of code it's supposed to be. They just said, do it, and that was about it. And so really it stretched my creative vein. I had to go work with friends and say, okay, how do we do addition? How do we do subtraction? How do we do multiplication? How do we do order of operations? And really what they didn't tell us from the get-go is that this project was made for us to fail. They knew that there was no way that people who'd been coding for 1 week could make a calculator all by themselves with no help from the internet or no help from the Microsoft employees who were teaching us. And so that was one thing that I thought was really interesting, and that really stretched my creativity. And that's one way that we could really solve this in the United States, through looking at computer science and seeing how really computer science is all about the building blocks of making things that have never been there before. What am I going to do? What is my generation going to do to solve a problem that we've never even thought of before through computer science or through using computers? In Ghana, one way that we try to solve these problems is just through education and awareness. Sometimes they feel like they're stuck in a box, the students in Ghana, that they're stuck where they are and they're stuck with that kind of standard of living. And so what Hugs for Ghana strives to do specifically is to open their eyes to the world around them. That's why we hand-deliver soccer balls from Coca-Cola. That's why we hand-deliver soccer balls from the Irish Soccer Club and teddy bears and school supplies to just expand their horizons and show that really there is more out there. And I think by doing that, people are going to become more creative in seeing that, hey, I can actually maybe build a spaceship and maybe I can become a firefighter and become a doctor in America because they actually have the opportunity.
So you've got a fundraiser coming up on April 24th, I believe.
Yes.
What is it and where is it going to be held?
Yeah, it's called the Ghanaian Culture Night, and we do it every single year. This is our 5th annual Culture Night, and it's going to be held at the Rose Hill Community Center. You can actually buy tickets online through our website or through our Facebook page. We constantly post links up there. And really, it's $20 a ticket for a cultural night of Ghanaian entertainment, Ghanaian food, and also we're trying to tie in other cultures as well. One thing that Hugs for Ghana has been doing recently is expanding to other countries. In January, we did Hugs for Tanzania, and we went to Tanzania and hand-delivered supplies to Tanzanian youth. And so we're also featuring Tanzanian artifacts, a Tanzanian auction, and that's all on April 24th at the Rose Hill Community Center in Mukilteo, Washington. Awesome.
And where can people find your site? Remind us the address of your site.
Yeah, it's www.hugsforghana.org. There's no spaces. And And we update the site regularly, and there's a lot of ways that you can help through the site. You can click on the Contact Us page. You can click on the Start a Branch page. We're already in 5 states, and we're trying to expand to more. And so the more help, the better.
Well, last question. What's next? What's next for you? After this, where do you see Hugs for Ghana going?
Yeah, what's next for us is we're expanding out of just Hugs for Ghana and Hugs for blank. That blank being any country. So whether it be Hugs for Canada, Hugs for Tanzania, Hugs for India, really just allowing the opportunity for students to create their own projects for different countries. So, like I said before, we already did that in January in Hugs for Tanzania, and really this upcoming summer we're expanding also to Hugs for Canada and Hugs for China, where we're doing projects for Aboriginal people and projects for disaster relief in China. And so that's what's next for Hugs for Ghana. Our goal is to expand into 10 countries within the next 2 years, and also to be in all 50 states and to have branches in all 50 states throughout the next couple years. And so really that's what Hugs for Ghana is doing next. And it was a pleasure talking with you today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Actually, Michael, if I can throw in one more quick question.
Yes.
Do you have any advice that you could give to other young people like yourself who would like to start their own charities or organizations?
Yeah, one thing that I always like to think is to reach big and to dream big. I mean, no one ever got successful by just dreaming and thinking what was safe. If you look at Apple, Microsoft, all those companies broke the status quo. And so don't be afraid to dream big and break the status quo. And really go for whatever you believe in. Because if you believe in it, there's someone else that's going to believe in it and that wants to support you as well.
Awesome.
Michael, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I commend your work because I think, we are always awed by young people who basically go out there and decide to make a change. And you're definitely this week's Peace Fund Radio Hero of the Week. And please continue it, and I'm sure we'll keep in contact with you.
Cool. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
So this morning, actually, I now have to figure out how to get. There we go. I think. Am I going to get rid of you here, John? I don't know. I might have done. I might have gotten rid of John there, but anyway, Laurie, we're okay. I'm calling the group again. I don't want to call the group. Go back again. See, this is what you got for technology here. This is what happens, Laurie, when you got like an actor director trying to do something on Skype. It just doesn't work anymore. It's like.
It's okay to fail.
It's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. I think I'm getting John back. Anyway, John, are you back there? Did I get you?
Yes, you did.
Oh, good.
We're
good. Because I was like being, left, right. Anyway. Yes, Michael, I think, again, another hero of the week, who is, a youngster who is going out there and actually being creative in a sense and creating something that he wants to make a change with. And again, all power to his parents, who he says 2007. You're talking 7 years ago. That's when he was 10 years old when he first started doing this. So I mean, you think about that. As a kid that's 10, goes, oh, I want to go to Ghana and start the church. Mum we go, what are you talking about? But all power to the parents, because the parents are there supporting him to do that. And now look where he's at. His his goals are so far-reaching, which is fantastic because, as a youngster, you know, and I can't do it, is really kind of not in your vocabulary as much as it is when you're my age or yours or anybody else's. Anyway, you, John, too, don't you laugh. Don't you laugh in the background. Now, let's talk a little bit about technology cycle in the classroom. There's a repetitive cycle of technology in education, hype, investment, poor integration, and lack of educational outcomes. This cycle actually keeps spinning because when we talk about new technology, it reinitiates this cycle. Now, it's not a new thing. In 1922, Thomas Edison claimed that movies would revolutionize our educational system. In 1945, William Levinson, a Cleveland radio station director, suggested that portable radios in classrooms should be integrated into school life alongside blackboards. In the 1960s, government under John F. Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson invested in classroom TV. In an irrational leap of reasoning, Johnson went from a valid lament, unhappily the world is only a fraction of the teachers it needs, to a non-solution to meeting the challenge of through educational television. Doesn't really work, does it? Same thing happens today, that you've got new types of technology in the classroom and it's all going to be revolutionised, and it's a fantastic cycle, but if it's kept on a spinning cycle for too long, it's more detrimental than anything else because you can't replace what you originally have. You have to integrate rather than replace it, I think. I mean,
Right, exactly. And the whole reason all of this happens is because there is no one thing that works for everyone. There's no one invention or creation that's going to reach out to every student and change the face of education altogether.
Right.
So all of these things that have been put into place are excellent for many people. But then, like you've said, you didn't integrate it. They sort of let that take over and become the thing. So there's a lot of students who won't thrive in that environment. So you have to try and take a look at who is in your classroom that year. What kind of learners do you have? Take what you know this technology is good for and implement it in the way that's going to help the students that you have, at that time. And then it can be a really great thing.
It's actually showing here, even in the mid-'60s, they had an idea. It's called the American Samoa experiment, which was the education of 80% of students was based on watching educational telecasts. It was dismantled several years later because teachers, administrative parents, and kids basically said, this isn't working,
right.
Because they're trying to replace it totally with, let's put a TV in the classroom and run it that way. Again, as you said, kids get distracted. I mean, it's not that they have ADD?
Right.
It's not that. It's that there are so many other things to get their attention, and you need to have a one-on-one, I think, sometimes to actually allow them to do that, integrated with something like computers, because they're different than radio, TV. We should use them. I think it's a great thing to actually have. But researchers on computers, they always arrive at a single conclusion. Computers can help good schools do some things better, but they do nothing positive for underperforming schools. This means very specifically that efforts to fix broken schools with technology or to substitute for missing teachers with technology invariably fails. The key challenge in education remains the long-term directed motivation of the student, which is what you were talking about, and motivating that student to learn. It's something which no technology today can deliver on its own, but good teachers can deliver frequently.
Right.
And I like the sound of that because, to me, part of education, part of school is that community experience. It's like feeling that you were involved in it and you're a part of it. And I've seen lots of times, a kid will pick up an electronic device and the relationship becomes solely between the child and the device. It kind of shuts out everything and everyone else around them. And it kind of brings me back to something that Lori had said earlier about, acting things out and really making, the child feel like they were involved in the lesson. I think just makes all the difference in the world. So I guess we should maybe be thinking in terms of, how can we make technology a tool that everybody figures out, okay, how do we learn this thing together rather than just the relationship becoming between the child and the technology and kind of shutting everything else out. Do you think, Lori, that's maybe an element of it?
I do, definitely. And let's just take it outside of the classroom. For example, I've been hearing from a couple high schoolers, that it's actually rude to call someone on the phone, that it's appropriate to text someone, and actually calling someone is considered intrusive. So,
whoa, that's interesting. No more calling. But I have heard that before, that people sit there and they're literally in the same room texting to each other rather than talking to each other, and they don't want to call them on the phone because it's in. What? I mean,
yeah, that just kind of blows me away because to me, if I receive a text message, it's almost like someone else is saying, "Hey, I just started a conversation with you that I expect you to continue." For me, it's like, I don't know. I guess I'm old-fashioned in that.
Well, in a sense, that is even intrusive because if somebody calls you, you have the option to pick it up or not.
Right.
That's really it. You got call. Right. You got call display now.
Right.
But a text message, that's gone through. So now I've got the text message. If I don't reply to it, then somebody goes, "Well, why didn't you reply to me?" Right. Isn't that intrusive?
And it's taken the human interaction out of
communication. Absolutely, it has.
And there's so much that gets misread in text tone and
Well, the interesting thing is there's no shortcuts in technology and in human interaction because you're looking at schools that are underperforming or have limited resources. Their efforts to improve education really should focus on better teachers and stronger administrations that, you get information technology, if it's used at all, should be targeted for certain specific uses limited to well-funded schools where fundamentals are not in question. I mean, you really should. We're talking about fundamentals of education to children on a 1-on-1 basis or a 1 and 10 basis, 12 basis, depending on how many teachers they have in a classroom. But that should be focused on more than let's dump a bunch of technology into a school classroom and hope that works.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think that's a really big blanket statement again to make, to say that underperforming schools should not use technology, or this happens, or it makes it worse, and well-performing schools should get more technology. I really think it comes down to the teacher. So, I mean, obviously they've done studies, and in general it's shown to turn out this way, but there are a lot of amazing teachers in underperforming schools.
Yeah, no, there are.
And there's a lot of teachers who aren't putting in all their effort in private schools out here that people pay a lot of money to go to. So I think it's, depends on where you are, and it does, take
What do you what do you think on this topic, John?
Well, I think a lot of my high school English teacher, Virgil Casper, who to me is one of the big reasons that I got involved in writing, and he always really urged us to work hard and take pride in our work. And I know that he has a lot of trouble because he is kind of a hard teacher, and he gets lots of complaints from parents because, well, you're making my kids work too hard. Why are you making my kids take pride in their work, and why are you making them learn, responsibility and accountability in their work? And I know that he is, and lots of times, kind of struggled with the administration. With the administration, oftentimes kind of falling on the side of of the parents. He's just like, well, just back off, and he doesn't want to back off. He's like, I don't want to be less of a teacher. I don't want to make the kids feel like they don't have to work hard or they don't have to take pride in their work. So I think an element of that I wish would be the parents understanding that if a teacher is pushing your children, it's not to hurt them, it's to help them and teach them those important things like accountability and responsibility. And I think the more we take those things out of it, the harder it is sometimes for teachers to feel like they do have that support from the community.
Well, I want to piggyback onto that because it goes back to what Laurie was saying before about the teacher in the classroom. I mean, these kids they're in a 6-year program, 8-year program with that teacher. They have a mountain to climb to learn this, and there is no technology on earth that can motivate a child to do it. It's the human interaction that does that.
Absolutely.
Well, if you take a look, for example, if you're dropping off your child first grade, you're dropping them off at school, they are running up to their gate, they are running to their classroom, they are so excited to be in school.
Right.
By the time we're dropping
I haven't gotten there yet, by the way. Go on, carry on.
By the time we're dropping them off in high school, they're dragging their feet.
They're like, do I have to go today?
There's something wrong there. There's a breakdown where they're not keeping that enthusiasm all the way through to the end.
Yeah, and it does come down to the teachers and who they've got, but also, a little bit to the parents. I think some kids go into schools. There are so many other factors as well when you go into a school. It's not just the teacher; it's the kids in the school. Maybe they're being bullied. Maybe they're being picked on. There's a whole bunch of factors. Maybe they don't have as many friends as they want to. They're not on the school team. There could be a whole bunch of things that makes them go, "Oh, I'm not good enough." And I think that's something that the parent has to sort of step in and go, "Well, why do you feel that school is?" My nephew used to use this word all the time. Boring.
Yeah.
Which is it's boring. I'm like, is nothing boring? How's the TV? Oh, it's boring. How's the school day today? Oh, it's boring. I'm like, oh, you've got another part of your vocabulary you'd like to use. But there is that factor that I think kids get to where they think it's not as interesting as possible. I think there's myth versus reality. Technology is transformative, revolutionary, and otherwise stupendous. Therefore, it must be good for education. Is that the myth? The reality is, and this is what I'm reading, the myth is pervasive because it is so easy to believe and because we want to believe it so badly. After all, with computers, we can publish our own newsletters, but buy gifts in our pajamas and find the best Italian restaurant in town. Personally, I like sushi, and it would be nice if all we had to do was to sit every child in front of a computer for 6 hours a day to turn them into educated, upright citizens. But why do we believe this? It makes no sense. We don't expect that playing football video games makes a child a great athlete. We don't believe that watching YouTube will turn our kids into Steven Spielberg. And we don't think that socializing on Facebook will turn people into electable governmental officials. And if none of these things work, then why do we expect it of writing, history, science, or mathematics? A good education is second only to parenting in the importance it has in raising capable, upright members of society. We would never think to replace parenting with technology. And when we do, at times, we do it with shame, and only because we're too tired to parent, not because gadgets are superior to us. Why do we keep trying to replace teachers? Laurie, I would hate to put that towards you because I couldn't see anybody replacing you, because I know you very well, and you're a very good teacher. You taught Angelisa how to work on an audition one time, which was amazing. But actually, it looks like we're actually out of time. Oh my goodness, I'm like beeping, beep, 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 beep. I think I'm going to blow up in a minute.
Well, everyone will have to be in suspense and just imagine what they think I would have said.
Laurie, thank you for joining us this morning. And John, thank you for bringing us. I want to quick reach out to Teach for America, www.teachforamerica.org. Teach for America is a growing movement of leaders, now over 37,000 strong, that works at every level of education, policy, and other professions to ensure that all children can receive an excellent education. Although 16 million American children face the extra challenges of poverty, an increasing body of evidence shows that they can achieve at the highest levels. So, thank you for joining us this week. Next week we will have Ethan Dettenmaier and John Beerley and probably a couple of other interesting people to come into the show. Again, Laurie, thank you for joining us this morning.
It was my pleasure.
It's an honor to have you, Laurie.
Thank you. And our closing quote will be from Mahatma Gandhi today. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. This is Adrian Paul and Ethan Dettenmaier. We'll see you again.
You're listening to Peace Fund Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.